Growing and scaling a business is complex. It can be very scary and lonely trying to navigate it all. It comes down to the community of trusted people you surround yourself with. Let's dive in to the Business is People podcast. Welcome back, everyone, to the Business is People podcast. Very excited to have a good friend of mine here, Tyler, who's the CEO of Centori, who won the 5-minute pitch here because he's creating some waves and has a unbelievable platform solution when it comes to things in the SEO space. So Tyler, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Kham. I'm really excited to join.
Yeah, and you and I have chatted because, as both agency owners, we kind of talk shop all the time. And I think I really enjoy seeing how you are progressing and growing. It gives me an opportunity to mentor through the program that we're in together with the Venture Forum, and with other aspiring agency and marketing owners. So tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from and kind of how you got started.
Yeah, for sure. So I live in the Boston area. I'm living in Brookline right now, and I've been there for a while. And I never really went far from Massachusetts. I went to school in Worcester. I was very passionate about everything that's happening in Worcester. I went to Holy Cross, and great place to be settling out in Boston and being able to be still involved in what's going on in Worcester and the really strong entrepreneurship and startup community there. It's been really, really exciting to get to be a part of that.
And tell us, what is it that your company does and how does it impact the audience that you're serving?
Totally. So Centori, where we were actually big year of transition, as it has been for a lot of companies. We actually started setting out to make a simple SEO tool. So something that any small business could use to learn about search engine optimization, create really good content, optimize their website, and improve their rank on Google. Through the kind of journey of entrepreneurship and really trying to grow this tool and action feedback and get more users, we found that there's a very different problem that presents itself in SEO. It's not so much that people don't know what to do for SEO or what different SEO tasks that they should be doing, but they really just don't know where to start. SEO is a really long-term investment. You're talking 6 to 12 months, and that's really intimidating, especially if you're not sure what you want to do. So this year, we've been really kind of in the midst of a really big pivot more from SEO software towards SEO education. And so using the tools and software we've developed to empower startups and small to medium-sized businesses while providing that strategic guidance to help them build a really effective SEO strategy that actually sets them apart from their competitors. So that's been really cool. We've been rolling out group coaching programs, one-on-one coaching programs, monthly SEO coaching, which has been pretty exciting, and things are actually starting to pick up in a way that we really weren't seeing with the software, which has been really exciting. And I think a lot more rewarding because we get to really become a part of the team and watch our customers grow instead of kind of just seeing them interact with the tool.
What made you kind of change that thought? Because I think I remember when you guys won the 5-minute pitch, you had a plan. Your aspiration was this road, but then you transition to something else. Because I think for folks listening, some folks probably are always wondering, am I doing the right thing? Should I change? Do I stay the course? So walk us through that thought process.
Yeah, I mean, it's really been about a 2 to 3 year journey. We were involved in the Worcester Tech Advisor Network back in 2019, and we were really on the software track. I'd say towards the end of last year, after a couple of years of trying to get this platform to really take off, we just weren't seeing people successful with it. And I realized that they needed a little bit more of a human involvement. So we started exploring that. Going into the 5-minute pitch, we started refocusing and thinking, well, what if we got the software right? This SaaS is a business that scales really well. Maybe we just didn't do it right. Maybe we need to refocus our approach. But really, I'd say around the spring, so a couple months after the 5-minute pitch, we really had to take stock of growth over the past couple of years and think about the people who were most successful with the software. And we realized it wasn't the software that made them so much successful. It was the strategy that they were able to develop. And it was because they were able to actually interact with me or someone on the Centori team. And that's when I really realized when it comes down to it in any SEO platform, whether you're using any of the big ones or the small ones that are popping up, the data's about the same. The kind of things that they do are about the same. The real way you can differentiate yourself is strategy. And that's where we decided, let's lean in hard, get really involved with our customers, run these coaching programs, kind of productize the knowledge we have on how to build an SEO strategy. And we'll kind of hitch our ride to that. And that's been much more successful than it was just as a software platform, not just in terms of getting new customers, but just in the success that people had, which has been really, I'd say really thrilling to see. And that kind of just encourages us just to continue full steam ahead in this direction and really focus on driving value and the outcomes for our customers.
I love that you mentioned about values and outcomes. And that's something I've been training all of our clients when they're doing messaging and brand messaging on their websites or when they're talking to their prospects and clients. You got to talk about outcomes, because as much as you want to talk about your process and your tactics and how the whole thing is done and made, people ultimately just care about the outcomes. So in that lens, Tyler, like, what does success mean to you? Because I think a lot of different entrepreneurs have different, different goals and outcomes for themselves. So what's an outcome and what does success mean for you?
Yeah, I'd say success to me is really measured by the impact that you drive and create. And I think that goes all the way through my career. I began my career at HubSpot and their customer support team. And so success was, well, how happy or satisfied is the customer after this interaction? And then I made the jump to product management. And if you're a good product manager, you really want to focus on, are customers successful with the product you're creating? It's not just, hey, I launched this new product, but are people using it and are they actually successful? Is it moving the needle forward? And I think that is the trap that I fell into with Centori, is really focusing on the dream, the vision, the product that I was building, and not thinking and not putting the customer at the center of it and the outcome I was trying to drive. It's easy to fall in love with a tool you're building or a product that you're building or a landing page you're creating. But when you're thinking about, no, we need to center on the customer and what outcome are we actually driving, it's when we actually pivoted to that focus that we started getting more success, which is an outcome for us as a business, which is more customers, more people engaged, and more people are happy. I think at the end of the day, people can say, a lot of ways that they'll say, oh, I'm successful. And sometimes people attach like a dollar amount. But I think at the end of the day, really, it's the outcomes that you're driving, because that's what helps a business move forward and really grow and build strong relationships with your customers.
But ultimately, Tyler, you're doing this because you're passionate about SEO and stuff, but like, what's the outcome that you want? Like, you're doing this to travel. Like, people get into business. Yeah. It's not just about the business itself. It's more than that, right? So I want to kind of dig a little deeper on the success for you there, right? So of course, in successful business, we care about the clients, of course, yes. And that's what you're doing. That's why you are growing at the pace that you are. But let's say, 10 years from now, things are happening and things are flowing. You got ops, you got people, you're not in the business, working in it, you're working on the business, and eventually you might be exiting, right? I think eventually most businesses, ultimately they exit or get bought out, or you pass it on. So what is the outcome? Like, why are you doing this? What are you trying to get to?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think for me, the outcome I'm trying to drive, one is to build a business that, drives valuable impact. It is fundamentally different than a lot of people who approach SEO. I want to kind of do something different in the SEO space. So that's at like more of like a business level, the outcome that Centori wants to drive. I think for me personally, I'm really passionate about creating things and seeing things through and seeing the reactions, the impacts they drive, but also having the freedom that comes with being able to create and run a business. In a lot of ways, it's a lot less freedom than you have as an employee, because as an employee, you're salaried, you have healthcare and all that stuff taken care of. You don't get that taken care of when you run a business, but also you get the freedom to kind of put your stamp on and say, well, I'm working now or I'm not working now. I think actually back to my parents, my dad still runs his own business. He runs a private wealth management company. And he would be working at home before working from home was popular. This was like 15 years ago. And, he had his office and he would work sometimes till 10 p.m., but he would always be at my baseball games, and soccer games and even pick you up from school. And so when I think about personal outcomes, that's the big one, is the freedom that comes with it and being able to find that doing something that I really believe in and do something different.
Right on. Yeah. It's nice to have the freedom. And some people have the misconception like, oh, you guys have all this time, you have this freedom, you're your own boss. But we're putting a lot of time into this, because there's a misnomer. Some people just think it's the limelight, right? It's not champagne bottles and Lamborghinis, right? Because, there's work involved. Nothing's earned without hard work and discipline, right? And motivation and just perseverance. But what comes out of that is like, yeah, we might have flexibility to go do things, and we want to have that flexibility to go. Like, I have 4 kids, so being able to be there for them at the dance recitals or games, but then we make it up. Like, we might have to work at night. We do somewhere else. But at the end of the day, we're able to be presence for personal and business, which is a nice benefit of folks like yourself who are doing what you're doing. So looking back, Tyler, kind of where you're at right now, and if there was someone who wanted to pursue a very similar path, what would be the advice you would give that person who want to have a really similar career path as you?
I would say if you have an idea, take it, crumple it up, throw it out, and talk to your customers first. We spent a good 2 years obsessed with the idea of what Centori was as a platform, and we missed out on, actually driving value and being successful, making our customers successful on the platform and thinking about what the problem they actually have is and how we can solve it. So I think that's the biggest thing. And that's the thing I see a lot in entrepreneurs. I'm involved in a lot of forums with different entrepreneurs and networks or in-person networking before and post-COVID as you can do it. And you see a lot of folks who focus on the idea first because it's extremely tempting. But I'd say take a step back and focus on the problem and define your customer, define the unique problems that you're solving, how you're solving, and really, I think, make sure that they'll pay for it before you actually spend any ounce of effort on like a web page or especially building a product or coding a product. I think that's the single piece of advice. I was given that advice. I was given it a lot. I ignored it. And I would tell people, hey, you're going to be given this. Don't ignore it like I did. You can save yourself 2 to 3 years and you'll probably be a lot happier. But I am glad that I learned it. So eventually.
That advice, I don't think is ever going to be old. It's something we still do every day to our clients. The call before I jumped on this podcast, I talked to one of my strategists. Let's just interview some of the customers. This is for our client. And let's just validate to make sure this is what they're looking for. As much as there was research done already, there was a consulting company that paid for the research. So I said, well, of course that's helpful, but at the end of the day, let's talk to someone, let's validate it because you can never get enough.
Yeah.
And people's behaviors can change. But yeah, like I think a lot of times people assume like, here's the market, here's what I think people want. But to your point, you want to have reassurance and validate and really make sure you're aligning with the consumers of their challenges and what they're looking for. So that's really great advice.
Totally. And it applies to all things, not just entrepreneurship, like marketing and SEO. People think a lot, oh, SEO, I'll just write 200 blog posts and that'll be good. You should take a step back and think, well, who are my customers? What are they searching for? And how can I lead them in the next step? It applies to so many different things and you can save yourself so much time and money by actually picking up a phone and talking to people or doing it through your computer or doing a survey. And you learn it eventually. Either you listen to people or you find out the hard way. And I think fortunately for us, the hard way only took like 2 to 3 years. And we got a long road ahead of us. So there's plenty of room to grow.
Everyone learns their lessons at different times, but it's interesting. I'm in a cohort with all these other agencies, and their agencies are like many years ahead of us, but also like 10x the size. But then they just went through a challenge with some HR thing that we already went through, right? So then we're giving advice. So like everyone has value that they can provide no matter what life cycle they are in their business. And we talked about Venture Forum earlier, that entrepreneurial support organization. Like the whole purpose is for folks like us to get together and support each other because there's a lot of value and knowledge that we all bring because of the different experiences that we've had. So you talking about, making sure you're constantly in the know and having a pulse. How do you stay on top of like trends and learning? How do you always keep your knowledge up there?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I read the news, obviously, just to know what's going on in the world. But I think in terms of our industry, I try to keep a really close eye on different trends in marketing. And so there's different forums, things like Quora and Reddit or Indie Hackers are great places to really get plugged in and see the types of questions and challenges people have, how that's changing over time, new needs that are arising. Obviously, subscribing to all the stuff that's going on with Google because they're constantly making changes. Twitter is super helpful as well, actually. I found that people are very active on Twitter as a channel when it comes to marketing SEO and kind of sharing news and trends and findings like, hey, I've lost all my organic traffic this month. Did Google make a change? And suddenly you can kind of go down that rabbit hole, which is a lot of fun. I think that's a challenge really is there's so many places to get information and it's easy. You could spend 2 to 3 hours. And I don't think I met many business owners who have 2 to 3 hours to spare in a day. So that's always the challenge, but being plugged in where I can and trying to focus on like, okay, where can I get some type of information or get plugged into it is helpful.
Well, to that point, it's a good segue. Like, how do you carve out time? Because, it's challenging for me sometimes. So what I do is I block out time. I time block it on my calendar. So I do it 2 times at night and I do it 2 times in the morning. So it's on my calendar, because if it's not living on my calendar, it doesn't happen. But everyone has a different way to organize himself. And sometimes it's not perfect. I'll book over it too, but I'll make it up somewhere else. So how do you make sure that you are doing that? Like, is it kind of just on the whim, or are you very regimented about it?
Yeah, I get up pretty early in the mornings. I get up around 5 a.m. and that is usually my like super quiet time where I can just ease into the day, have a cup of coffee and just kind of peruse through my different channels and really map out the day. And I find that's the best time because, once it's past 8, 9 in the morning, people are up, things are going on, you're getting emails, Slack conversations. It's really easy to get lost in that. So really those mornings are kind of like my sacred space where it's just me, it's quiet, it's dark, and I can just get some good focus and think time done. I usually get pretty tired by the end of the day. So anytime like post 6 p.m., I'm usually too wiped and I just want to read or something and just kind of relax if I don't have anything super pressing.
Yeah, I'm not a morning person. I've gotten better at it because it does help to kind of kickstart your day, do some mindfulness. I'm on and off when it comes to meditation. I think really at the end of the day, as long as you get a chance to kind of like reset and think, and the purpose of meditation is to help with that. So is that something we've always done? Did you learn that from somewhere? What really helped you kind of create your routine?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it goes all the way back to high school. We moved, so I grew up in Wellesley and then we moved to Sherborne. And I really wanted to impress the baseball coach, and they ran a lifting club. They call it the Breakfast Club, and they ran this like lifting session 3 days a week on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it started at 5:30. So I get up at like 4:45 or 5, and my parents would drive me there to the school to do it. And I just got in the habit of doing it from a young age, from when I was 14. And then in college, I would want to go to the gym, and it was super packed at Holy Cross. The non-athlete gym was pretty small. And so if you try to go at like 1 or 2, is absolutely wall to the wall, wall to wall people. So I get up at 5 and work out then. And it was just me and a couple professors, which was pretty funny. And honestly, I just kept up the habit. That's the main thing. And even when I'm not going to the gym, I still get up early because I can knock out some work. And I feel at my most focused, obviously, you get right at 5, no one's happy. But I think after giving myself a good 15 minutes to settle in, I can get pretty focused. And it's when I feel the most energized, whether I'm working out or doing some work. It takes a while, though, to get used to it.
Oh yeah, everything's a habit, like, especially running a business. There's so many habits you got to learn.
Hmm.
And it's important because if you don't do all these things first for yourself, right, it affects your business and your team members and the people around you. So you got to create the right habits, and then it trickles down. So did you have like any mentors? Like, could you name like 3 people who have really helped you grow and was the most influential to you?
Yeah. So one who I met through the Worcester Tech Advisor Network a couple years ago, Tom Whitkin, who's very active through WPI's programs, mentoring students, mentoring recent grads and young entrepreneurs. And he and I still keep in touch and chat all the time. And he's been very influential in me growing as a person and as a founder. So he's definitely probably the first person that I would list. Let's see who else. There's also one of my professors from college at Holy Cross. He's one of the pre-business advisors, David Chu. He's someone that before COVID, we would meet up for coffee and just chat and just talk about life, starting a business, faith. And it was just really great to just kind of chat about things, not just, okay, it's super tactical. Let's talk about what you're doing and what you're doing in your business now, what you're doing next, but who are you as a person? So I'd say he's also been really influential for me. And I'm looking forward to being able to get coffee with him again. We haven't been able to meet up, but we will soon.
That's great. And as you're rapidly growing, what are some of the biggest challenges you're facing right now, Tyler?
I think we're at that stage where we have something that has legs and it's starting to run with them. And now you're at a stage where everything needs to be worked on at all points in time. And as a founder, and especially with a really small team, it's easy to get so bogged down and lost in that and not really make much progress. Like you're doing a lot of work, but you're actually not moving forward. And so that's been the struggle recently. So we're running these group training programs, the one-on-one training programs, and those have been really great. We've been getting good feedback, and it's easy to get bogged down in that. Not that you necessarily get bogged down. I actually love doing that work, but thinking about, okay, what does the business need? Where are we at? How do we get to that next level? And what's it going to take? Either process improvements to speed things up and automate things, either building out the team and getting more people so that we can scale. So I think that's where we're at now. It's nice to look at a landing page and think, oh, should I change the color of this or add this graphic? But that's not the most important thing. It's easy to get in the habit of doing that type of work when you don't have many customers, but as soon as you get a few in the door, you realize, oh, wow, I have to talk to these people and I need more of them. So I'd say that's where we're at.
Yeah, it's the cycle of scaling. As you get more people, more clients, there's operations, and there's quality assurance, then there's customer success. Then, of course, there's HR, billing, all that stuff, right? Taxes. So it's great to see when you reflect and sit back. And I know I'm sure you do this in the mornings when you think about your business, is to make sure that you think like where you are today and where you were, because it's important to kind of celebrate the small wins, Tyler, right? And I always tell my team, let's hit the gong, let's just celebrate it, because you have to be the person, and it's okay to be the person to give yourself the pat in the back, to be the self promoter of yourself, because who else is going to do it for you? And you don't need to seek out that support. Of course, there's people that love you and that are supporting you, but at the end of the day, like, you have confidence in yourself, and that's kind of why you're successful and you're growing. But when it's hard, it's yourself that's pulling yourself up, right?
Yeah.
So when you're running in those challenging moments and it's kind of dark, like how do you get out of that like funk?
Yeah, I think the most impactful thing I've been doing, especially in the last 6 months, is taking a step back and looking at this to-do list or making a to-do list and just running through it and asking myself, if I had to pick 3 things from this, what would I do? Like, what moves us forward? What takes a step forward for the business? And that's been the most helpful, because it's easy to get overwhelmed. It's easy to get kind of this whole paralysis by analysis situation. So if you had to ask yourself, if I could only work for 2 hours today, what would I want to accomplish? And that's been super helpful in just me reapproaching how I work and maximizing the output of my work. Because at the end of the day, I get up at 5, and if I'm up till 10, that's a long day. I can't do the math that quickly, but that's definitely over 8 hours, but that's not the point. It's not, I worked 15 hours today. It's okay, did that do more than an 8-hour day? I think in a lot of cases it doesn't. So I think, okay, if I would condense that down to 3 hours, what would I want to accomplish to be very successful today or very satisfied today? And then anything else is a bonus. So that's been pretty helpful. I think honestly, just taking a lot of steps back to look at like the macro and think, okay, how much progress have we made in the past year? So if you want to look at like customer base or traffic or revenue or any of these different needs, subscribers, leads, any of these different needles you can move, it's easy to get lost and think, well, we're not really doing as well compared to last month, or we're not as much forward as we wanted to last month. But when you look at, the past year and you realize, oh, wow, things doubled, that's great, or tripled. That's a great reminder that those month to month or week to week movements are going to be pretty small, but they add up. So I try to do that and do it with the team, to celebrate as a team and not just look at here's the numbers compared to last month or last quarter, but last year. And it's a great way to keep everyone motivated.
That's fabulous advice. That's great. It sounds like you really do have a good routine and discipline. It's challenging for people. It's hard to stay focused because you get pulled in so many directions. I like what you said about really taking the time to like, what can I get done in 2-3 hours? Because that's critical to reassess, because you can feel overwhelmed. And a lot of entrepreneurs say, you know what, I worked 14 hours today. I've been doing it for all week. Like, why is it not working? And it's not amount of time, which is quantity. It's the quality of the work that you're putting in. You could be just as effective, maybe you because of lack of sleep, because a lot of entrepreneurs who are starting up, they don't get a lot of energy. I went through this when I remember my first year or so, staying up to 3 and 4 almost all the time. And I had a baby, but how productive was I, the next day? So like, it's okay. Take that half day, recharge, be more productive in 2 hours than you are in 6.
Totally. That's the name of the game. Like, time is not the variable that you really want to maximize, or like not the variable you really want to increase in the equation. It's like the maximization of output that you can increase out of that time.
So here we love our community, hence the name. The business is people, and it's about the people in our community. So why did you choose Worcester in this area?
Yeah, so I'm super passionate about what's going on in Worcester. I mean, I went to college in Worcester and it wasn't super long ago, but it was long enough that a lot of the stuff going on wasn't really happening. And now you go and you see like coffee shops and co-working spaces and entrepreneurship programs, and it's really exciting to see. But I think the biggest thing is you're growing a business or a startup in Boston and you're one of, dozens of people in the immediate vicinity. You throw a rock and you can hit someone who's also starting the same business that you are. But when you're in Worcester, it feels like a much more, you get a lot more access. It's a little bit more special. It's a tighter knit community, a small chip on the shoulder because it's not Boston, but we want to grow and we really believe in the city. And it's really exciting to be a part of that. I think that's the biggest draw. And I mean, in all the interactions I've had with people and all the things I've been able to be a part of, it really just kind of confirms that like thought process and kind of those feelings I have for the city.
Yeah, could you describe to us kind of a little bit more detail of like the culture or the types of people here that you notice in Worcester versus other areas or other metros?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like we're all live in Massachusetts, so there's only so different people can get. But I think the biggest thing is you have a lot more people at a networking event are willing to talk and follow up and build a relationship with you. They don't just hand you your business card and you never hear from them. But if you do follow up, they actually respond and you can set up some time. I think that's been the biggest difference because I've been to a lot of networking events in Boston where you connect with someone and then, it feels like you made a connection, and then you just never hear from them again. Versus Worcester, it's like, hey, yeah, of course, I'd like to talk. I remember you, because the scale is a little bit smaller.
Yeah, that's vital. I think relationships and finding the right networks and people that you surround yourself is important. And I've noticed the same exact experience here in Worcester. It's just a different feel. Sometimes you have to tell people you just got to experience it.
Yeah. I find too is you see the same people multiple times, not in a way that like every event is the exact same people, but you'll see someone that you met before, and it just helps reinforce that kind of
Yep.
building an actual relationship. Because at the end of the day, that's really what building a relationship is talking to people and talking to someone and getting to know them and talking to them on a regular basis. And it's hard to do that when every time you go to like a meetup or some event, it's just different people every single time. It's a little bit harder to actually build like a lasting mentorship or business relationship.
And when you're a business owner, but also personally yourself, like what are ways that you guys kind of supporting or giving back to the community? Are you guys doing any causes,
Yeah,
things like
that's
that?
something that we definitely want to get more involved in. We have. It's hard with COVID because everything more or less gets shut down. But I think the big thing I've been trying to do is giving like talks and free workshops on SEO, because you have a lot of people who are kind of start businesses or grow them who are based in the area, and a lot of startups that are being started in Worcester, which is really great. And so just helping them and giving them the tools they need, the information they need to actually reach that level that they're trying to achieve. So it was a couple months ago, we did a workshop at WPI, and looking to keep it going. We're really involved in the work lab and really love, we're based out of there. So I love talking to the other folks who were there starting businesses as well, and looking to really kind of providing that free information and access to it to help people really make a difference in their businesses. Looking forward to now that we can do more of these in-person events, at least, for the time being, or even do them virtually. That's not a problem either.
I'm seeing a lot of growth around like community and
Mhm.
smaller scale, which is awesome because we're seeing a trend in that way. I think it grew more rapidly through this digital acceptance that people were kind of into. And I think it really opened opportunities, right? Networks, business, friendship, support. So, like, what does business community mean to you?
I think we're all kind of crazy in the same way because, like I said at the start of this, it's easy to just not putting it down, because I had a job, but it's easy to have a job and just kind of show up to work, work your 8 hours and leave. But we're all kind of crazy in that we want to create something new. And I think it's kind of continuing to remember and reinforce that bond and have the opportunity to lift each other up, because I'm a big believer in like a rising tide lifts all boats. And as we help each other grow and build our own networks, it's kind of this virtuous cycle where it helps yourself. And I think there's a ton of power in that. And especially in a community like Worcester, where you can actually get to know people and run into them again and remember them, it really reinforces that very well. Versus in a large community, it's easy to kind of get lost in that type of really nice webbing between different businesses tends to get lost.
All right, well said. We are going towards the end of our time here today. I kind of flew by a little bit. I have some rapid fire questions to ask you, kind of more like off the cuff, a little bit insight in who Tyler is. So don't overthink it. I'm just going to ask you some fun questions. You ready?
Sure thing. Yeah, fire away.
All right. What would you pick as your last meal?
Oh man, that's a good one. I'm a big barbecue fan, so like probably smoked brisket or something with some mac and cheese and coleslaw.
Nice. Actually, I was looking for a barbecue place yesterday. So, what song do you actually play the most on your phone now?
I'm blanking on a song. I say the most I actually listen to music is when I work out. I got a lot of Green Day. So, anything by Green Day, it's usually on my iPod.
Awesome. What is your guilty pleasure, like show or streaming show that you're watching?
I really like those HGTV shows or Food Network shows because it's just super like snackable content where you can have it on in the background or tune in. So like, like those types of cooking shows or 30-minute meal foods. Or diners, drive-ins, and dives. That's one of my favorite like go-tos when I got nothing else on.
Yeah, I actually play that in the background all the time too. My kids even like asked to put it on. I don't know if they like the character there more than the show, but what's a podcast or a book that you're listening or reading now?
So I've been listening to Startups for the Rest of Us as a podcast. It's about bootstrap startups and kind of small teams, either single founders or just small teams, and kind of this like different way than the typical go to California and get a bunch of venture capital. It's like, no, I'm going to build something sustainable. And that's been really good and reinforcing and kind of helps me take a step back and actually think things through rather than get too caught up in it. So that's been really helpful.
And what's one thing, a hobby, a talent, Tyler, that people don't know about you?
I love to cook. I've been cooking since I was about 11. So I can make like fresh pasta, ravioli. I'm Italian, so I make all the Italian food, and I do a lot of barbecue as well. So usually, if I'm not working, I'm always doing something nice for dinner.
Making your own gravy, as they say.
Yeah, yeah. You get the Sunday gravy. So
my wife's Italian, so that was something I was nice. When we first dated. I'm like, what do you mean gravy? Like that's sauce. And I got educated very quickly.
Yeah, yeah, we all got the lingo.
So as a recap, what's the one takeaway you want to have someone have listening to this?
I think the big thing is you save yourself a lot of trouble listening to the customer and focusing on impact and value, because at the end of the day, our ideas might be really great and you want to run with them. But at the end of the day, like if you're running a business, you got to get someone to pay you for them, because that's what allows you to get the financial freedom, get the time freedom to build a team. A lot of the reasons that we want to build a business. And so I think if I could talk to Tyler from 5 years ago and saying, hey, you're going to have this really exciting idea, but put it on the shelf and talk to people about their problems first. And maybe he'd listen to me, or maybe he wouldn't. I'd still be in this position. But I guess the caveat to that is, even if you do go in idea first, or if you are currently going in idea first and you're really struggling, it's never too late to take a step back, because you got a lot of time. You can always pivot. And I think people also forget that you can change and there's room to change.
So there's an opportunity here to kind of give us a little like tidbit. What are you working on right now? And then what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so what we've been working on now is we've been leaning hard into educating people about SEO strategy. So we've been running a group coaching program. I've taken all the principles I've learned about strategy as a product manager and doing SEO for clients, and we've broken it into 4 principles. So we cover these 1 principle per week. It's a 4-week program. You get on with a great group of other marketers, founders, entrepreneurs. We have a Slack group where you can engage in. You get weekly assignments, and it's just a really great collaborative way for people to learn about SEO, build a strategy that can transform their business, and hopefully make some friends along the way. So we just finished that up. We're going to be running another program this fall. So you can learn more about it on Centori.io. That's our website. You can look me up on Twitter. Our Twitter handle for Centori is Centori SEO. And then you can look me up on Twitter personally for Tyler Scionti. And that's the best way to get in touch with me. But I think that's the most exciting thing. And we do one-on-one training, but the nice thing about the group coaching is it's at a little bit lower cost. So it's very startup entrepreneur, small business friendly. And it's a great way to kind of just, jumpstart your growth and refuel your business.
It's amazing. You're really building your own community as well, Tyler, right?
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you really learn by being with other people. I think that's the other thing about SEO is you can watch a couple videos, but you really only learn by talking to people and by doing. We're trying to really foster that as well.
As you say, and it's a common thing that I say to myself is rising tides lift all boats, so those guys are all collaborating and learning from each other. So
Yeah, totally.
Tyler, thank you so much for your time and really appreciate the impact of what you're doing here in the community locally, and wish you all the best and looking forward to having you back on, because I know we were talking about doing some deeper dives on some technical stuff when it comes to SEO and marketing.
Totally. Thanks so much for having me, Kham. This was a blast and looking forward to being back on.
If you have any questions and topics you'd like us to cover, please email me at podcast@inthinkagency.com or message me on LinkedIn.